Good morning. Good morning. One more time, otherwise we'll refill the coffee. Good morning. All right, get the energy up. I'm Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer here at the Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for joining us today for Permit America to Build. Chances are, if you're in this room, you already believe that our federal permitting process is broken. And if you don't, hopefully walking through our maze this morning convinced you of the need for reform. You know, permitting reform has become one of those unique issues in Washington that, as you will see today, both Republicans and Democrats agree need to be addressed, agree needs updates, agree that the current system is failing America, which raises the obvious question. In a polarized government, in a polarized society where both parties don't seem to agree on much of anything, when they agree on permitting reform, why can't we get it done? Well, I think there's one somewhat obvious answer to that. Unfortunately, this is one of those issues where failure doesn't immediately lead to catastrophic consequences. You know, when you think about the government funding process and appropriations, if you don't get all the appropriations bills done, the government shuts down, and immediately the American people see the failure. If you have the debt limit, if Congress, heaven forbid, doesn't increase the statutory debt limit and we, for the first time ever, default with enormous catastrophic economic consequences, the failure is evident. But when it comes to permitting reform, it's just easy to keep talking about it. It's easy to keep insisting on one position, your side's position, while the other side insists on theirs, and the recognition that maybe it'll get easier later, maybe we'll find a solution later, maybe we'll get a better outcome after the next election. And it's not that those decisions to punt don't have consequences. Everyone in this room knows that they do, but they're not so immediately evident to our nation's lawmakers. So, with the support of many of you in this room, earlier this year, we launched a coalition effort, Permit America to Build, with over 350 organizations from across the United States and representing all sectors of the economy who just want to build things. And we had a simple message, that it's time to get permitting reform done, that we are going to bring the political pressure to bear on lawmakers from both sides of the aisle to find the common ground that we know can exist to actually get this across the finish line. We're actually pretty confident at the U.S. Chamber that this is going to bear fruit because we've seen it before. You know, infrastructure was the bill that for decades, as Suzanne Clark alluded to, just couldn't quite get done even though everyone agreed. And many of you in this room joined us and came together with a Build by the 4th of July campaign that, even though we didn't quite hit our 4th of July deadline, resulted in one of the most monumental investments in modern infrastructure in decades enacted later that fall. Our goal this year is simple, to repeat that formula to get permitting reform across the finish line and enacted into law. So we all need to do some collective things together. We need to talk about the cost, the projects that don't get finished, the projects that get delayed, the investments that people in your community aren't making because they just don't know when they'll get a permit approved. We need to raise the stakes. We need to talk about the economic consequences in local communities of not getting this done, of the costs that are already being borne by this broken system. So today, you're going to hear from experts who are talking about some of those costs. And we encourage you to share your experiences and what you're seeing in your industries and your communities. And most importantly, hit the hill, talk to lawmakers, grab the media, some of whom are in this room today, and let them know the consequences of inaction and that you're here because it's time to stop waiting and start building. Now, join me in welcoming my colleague, Evan Jenkins, the Senior Vice President and Head of Congressional and Governmental Affairs for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who will introduce our first keynote speaker. Evan?